A trip to an old quarry when the fall colors are coming out really can't be beat. In 1870, the Lake Superior and Mississippi Railroad was finishing a line from St. Paul to Duluth to connect Minnesota's capital city with Lake Superior. We are going to focus on the area within the black rectangle, or Pine County. The Lake Superior and Mississippi ran through the western edge of Pine County, with stops at Hinckley, Miller Station, and Kettle River Station. This map, from the Geology of Minnesota, also shows the railroad line and the same three stations. To the east of the Lake Superior and Mississippi Railroad was the Kettle River. Along the river, east of Miller Station, an extensive sandstone deposit was discovered in 1885. Colonel William Henry Grant was the first owner of the Kettle River Quarries. Initially, the rock was hauled from the quarry to Hinckley by horse teams. The black line shows the road from the quarry east of Miller Station to Hinckley, which was a distance of 15 miles over rough terrain. This 1893 map shows the location of the first quarries east of Miller Station, where horse teams could also haul the rock to. Even though this was a shorter distance, it was also rough terrain for heavy loads. Therefore, the Kettle River Railroad, headed by Colonel Grant, built a 5-mile spur to the sandstone quarries in 1887. Back in 1882, the Great Northern Railway had built a branch line from St. Cloud to Hinckley. The Great Northern wanted a connection to Lake Superior, so the Eastern Railway Company of Minnesota was formed to do just that, building from Hinckley to West Superior in 1888. The Eastern Railway Company of Minnesota would eventually be absorbed by the Great Northern, and its line crossed the Kettle River south of the first quarries. Martin Ring and James Tobin got the contract to perform the masonry work on all the bridges between Hinckley and West Superior. Ring and Tobin were big stone contractors from Minneapolis. Ring and Tobin leased nearly a mile of Kettle River frontage from Colonel Grant to establish their quarry. This quarry would be right next to the bridge where the Eastern Railway Company of Minnesota would cross the Kettle River. A high bridge would be required across the Kettle River, so having a quarry on location was very convenient. Ring and Tobin installed a quarry outfit worth about $30,000, which would be about $1 million today. With the huge quarry investment by Ring and Tobin, Colonel Grant formed a town site company in 1887 to establish the town of Sandstone, named for the famous quarry material. With the large influx in workers expected, they would need a place to live, as well as goods and services. The town of Sandstone was located just west of Ring and Tobin's quarry along the Kettle River. When the first election in Sandstone occurred in 1889, Colonel Grant was elected president. Disaster struck in September of 1894 when the Great Hinckley Fire swept through the area. A year later, in 1895, the Minnesota Sandstone Company took over operations of the Ring and Tobin Quarry. The name was changed soon after to the Kettle River Quarries Company. Let's take a closer look at the town of Sandstone and the quarry east of town. This was the path of the Great Northern, or Eastern Railway Company of Minnesota, through Sandstone. As mentioned before, the Kettle River was located just east of town. If you were standing in the rail yards looking southeast toward the town of Sandstone, this was the view of Main Street. On the far right-hand side was the main hotel, the Commercial. This is a close-up view of the Commercial Hotel. Here are some of the buildings made of sandstone that still remain today. Toward the middle of town was the public school, which was built in 1901 for $30,000. If you look closely at this photo, you can see the school was built of the local sandstone. There was even a fancy flag tower, paid for by the 8th grade students. The schoolhouse was hit by lightning in late September 1909, which burned most of the interior. The citizens decided to fix the burnt-out school and add an addition to the north side, essentially doubling its space. This is a photo of the new and rebuilt school from 1910, along with a top-down drawing of the building. A fancy marker was added to the top center of the building, highlighted in red on the photo. On the right side of the marker was the year 1901, which was when the rebuilt portion of the school was originally completed. On the left side was the year 1910, which was the addition to the building. In the middle were the initials SHS, which of course stood for Sandstone High School. This is another look at the new grade and high school. The building still stood as of 2024, and this is what it looked like. On the southern edge of town, there was a creosoting plant. Creosote is a wood preservative, and railroad ties were soaked with it to preserve them. This is what the Kettle River Quarries Company creosoting plant looked like. About next to the creosoting plant was the Great Northern Roundhouse. The roundhouse was built in 1895 of Kettle River sandstone. Here are two views of the sandstone roundhouse. On the edge of Main Street was the Great Northern Depot. Here are several views of the depot building. On the northern edge of town was a stone cutting shed. The Kettle River Company used this space for cutting and shipping sandstone. The Kettle River Company's quarry, which was initially the Ring and Tobin Quarry, was located on the eastern edge of town. The Great Northern had a spur track that ran into the quarry from the northwest. Here is a top-down view of the quarry from the 1914 Sanborn map. The quarry had an extensive network of rail lines running through it. There was a reservoir and pump house on the south side, and a switch engine house, office, storage, and lime house just north of that. In the middle was the powerhouse, machine shop, and 4 stone saws. Just north of that was the blacksmith and carpenter shops. On the far northern edge was another powerhouse and a rock crusher. This 1939 aerial photo shows the town of Sandstone and the railroad bridge to the northeast. Just south of the railroad bridge was a wagon bridge. The Great Northern also built a looping southern spur track to the quarry. Other than the railroad and wagon bridges near the quarry, there was also a water tank and a dam on the Kettle River. If you stood on the wagon bridge and looked to the north, you had a great perspective of the quarry grounds. Here are a couple other views from the same point. If you climbed to the top of the water tank and looked toward the Kettle River, you could see the dam and wagon bridge, but you wouldn't see the quarry, due to the sharp drop in elevation toward the river. Here are a few photos of the wagon bridge. The dam, shown here, provided power to some of the quarry machinery. The Kettle River Quarries provided employment for up to 700 men. The sandstone quarry had over a half mile of open rock face, which was up to 120 feet high. The dam furnished the power for the mills, crusher, dynamos, and air compressors. 5-inch wide pipelines ran the entire length of the quarry, carrying the power to the various drills and hoisting engines. There were 25 huge derricks, which could lift up to 20 tons, by steam or compressed air. The quarry had 2 locomotives, several miles of track, and many cars. There was also a monster locomotive crane. Waste rock was crushed and used in concrete and gravel. The sandstone was a light brownish tan color and had a strong silica bond, making it one of the most durable stones found on Earth. It had no seams, pebbles, or clay pockets. In 1906, the quarry shipped 6,000 train cars of stone, weighing 40,000 pounds apiece. The stone was used for curbing on streets, bridge work, and buildings. Loads of stone were shipped as far as New York City. The stone was also used in many other notable buildings. This is what the sandstone quarry looked like in the fall of 2024. If you want to visit the old Kettle River's quarry site east of the town of Sandstone, you can find most of it within the Robinson Quarry Park. There are also abandoned buildings at the first quarry site, east of the Banning State Park Campground, or just northeast of the town of Sandstone. That concludes the video. Make sure to check out my other YouTube videos and my primary website at mnbricks.com.